Bonjour à tous, bienvenue. Simplement avant de commencer, petit disclaimer, cette session elle va être en anglais. On a mis toutes les slides en français, on va y aller tranquillement, mais Joss qui est ici à côté de moi nous vient de Belgique. Je pense que l'anglais c'était quand même mieux que le flamand. Donc I'm going to switch to English. So hello and welcome everyone. We are really happy to have you there. So let me introduce myself. My name is Apolline. I'm a solution lead in sustainability. So I'm guiding our clients and helping them being compliant with the new laws in regard to this topic. And this is actually what we're going to see today. So we're going to go over with Joss a case that he did for one of our clients called Ghistelinck, where he helped them realize their double matérialité matrix. So in French, I'm going to translate for this one, matrice de double matérialité, which is actually the first step in being compliant to the CSRD, which is the new European law. So just welcome. Thank you for being here. Maybe first thing first, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, well, thank you for having me, Apolline, and thanks for allowing me to do it in English as well. I'm from Belgium, so I do speak French, but not to the level to bring you the story that we did with Ghistelinck. So my name is Jos Gillissen. I lead or co-lead the performance management solutions in Belgium, of which sustainability is a dedicated offering, which we put in the market with the double materiality assessments, but equally with the data component into it, as you will see in a moment.
Thank you. Welcome again. So we've been talking for only a minute, and I think we've already used lots of acronyms about sustainability, ESG. So maybe first thing first, if you could go over with us just about the few definitions to give it the context.
Yes, well, first of all, sustainability is a very broad topic. I think everybody has his own definition, but in essence, and it's driven for the moment with Europe, with the legislation there as well, it's everything that makes a company to be a long-lasting company with a specific focus on reducing the impact, the negative impact in that case, on the environment and on the people. And that's where, as mentioned, the E stands for environment, the S for social, so the people component into it, and then the governance is more on the compliancy and the policy elements. And once again, it's strongly driven by Europe with the CSRD, as we mentioned before, the corporate standards for the corporate sustainability reporting directive. That is.
All right, thank you. I think you gave us an overview. I think we all know and heard in the news that sustainability is a hard topic for us as consumers. But I was wondering, why is it so important for companies?
Well, I think in all honesty that it has been on the table with many organizations for years. In the past, many organizations had a profit, a people and a planet objective as such. Now with the new regulation, it becomes much more compulsory, right? What you see here on the screen is the time frame that Europe has put forward. So 2024, it started with the listed companies, but moving forward to 2028, all the companies with the criteria that I mentioned below need to report into Europe on sustainability. Although the political environment changed, I think we all know, not only in Europe, but also beyond Europe, I think it's fair to say that sustainability will be there to stay. Timing might be discussed going forward, but nevertheless, the reporting compliance elements will be there very shortly.
Okay.
And that's also the reason why Ghistelinck Automotive effectively reached out to us.
Yeah, I understand quite the challenge. Maybe can you tell us how should company tackle it? What should they do first and how should they do that?
Perhaps still first this one. Sorry, I missed that one.
No worries.
So in total, if we look at the regulations and the directive of Europe, potentially with all the European sustainability topics that Europe has defined, you could come up to what Europe calls close to 1,200 data points that need to be reported. It's not as worse or as bad as a C, but if you don't act upon it, if you don't do a double materiality assessment, you could be obliged to report up to 1,200 data points.
Okay, but I think it's not only about those KPIs, it's much more. Why?
Yes, well, as always, everything has, there are two sides to a coin. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, yes, there is an obligation to report going forward, depending upon the revenue, the headcount you have, and so forth. But on the right-hand side, and that's part of our philosophy and methodology as well, I think we should look at it as well as from an opportunity. It could be an opportunity, for instance, to further enhance a company's image, both from a consumer perspective, but equally from an employer perspective. That's what we often see. And what we also experience more and more, and the startups that were shown today definitely help in that space as well, is to look for new opportunities in terms of products or services, but equally and more radically in terms of new business models. We see that often coming up as well.
Okay, so there's the law, there's also the other aspect of clients, employees, and so on. But you did talk about those 12,000 KPIs. But I've understood that you can actually diminish them actually by doing the double materiality matrix. So I'm going to try and explain it the way I've understood it, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, those 1,193 KPIs, to know if you really need to do all of them, you need to do the double materiality matrix, which makes you determine which topic are the harder one and the most at risk. So I'm going to take an example. For instance, if I am a company that is close from a water source and that I have polluting thing that could go in the water, then this could be a risk. But from what I've understood, the other way around can also work. Like if I am on a floating zone, like we saw in Spain recently, and that my production site has a risk of being flooded, this also should be coming up, right? That's
correct, fully correct. I couldn't have explained it better, Apolline. So Europe asks for a methodology whereby you reflect upon two elements. What's the impact of your own operations on the environment and on the people, of course, but equally from a risk and opportunity perspective. Let's look at the short-term, the mid-term, and the long-term perspective. If we talk about the ESRS topics that Europe defined, and 94 of them, which one are relevant and which do have an impact from an inside and from an outside-in perspective, as such.
Okay, so maybe now that I understand why it was such a hot topic for Ghistelinck, can you quickly introduce the group to us, and then we can go in how you help them?
Yes, so the example we want to give is with Ghistelinck Automotive. It's actually a Mercedes garage that was founded in 1917, but after that really evolved into what we would call an end-to-end solution provider in the mobility space. So they do not only buy and sell cars and trucks and vans, they also go into maintenance and body shop activities, which makes sense to some extent, but they even take it one step further. They have a firm business unit in the second-hand cars. They do rental activities as well on the short term. So it's really, they're actually focusing on the access from Antwerp up to Lille, where they want to provide a mobility solution for a consumer, being as an end user like we are, or even organizations as well. So they're also on the fleet market. They have around 9 branches at the moment, but they're very active in mergers and acquisitions. So by the time I have said this, they might be up to 10 already. They have just under 740 employees, just under 400 million euro of chiffre d'affaires of revenues. So they're eligible for reporting into Europe on the 2025 figures as of 2026 as such.
Okay, thank you very much. So I understand that it was a hot topic for them as they need to start reporting in January. So it was good to do the double materiality beforehand. Yep. And actually, could you give us a bit more insight on how you help them doing this double materiality?
Yes, well, in Delaware, we developed an overall approach into sustainability, which is depicted on the slide here, with a double materiality assessment. And the green ones, just to clarify, is that's what currently is in scope, and we finalized to some extent with Ghistelinck Automotive. So it's a double materiality assessment. I'll tell you something more about that in a minute. But in parallel, we also did an awareness session when we kicked off the project at Ghistelinck. We also did what we call a functional data sheet exercise, whereby we're in the phase of documenting all the data points that need to be reported. I'll get back to that one in a minute as well. And the last point that will be repeated later on as well, in parallel, we also did an IT architecture study to see, now that we know which data points we have to collect, some of them are already available in the data warehouses, some of them are currently not recorded as such. So we need to find a way in moving and managing, more importantly, that data going forward. So perhaps on the first phase, on the double materiality aspect, there are two elements into that one. And one of the most important elements is étape one, that is mentioned here. That's the preparation phase. In the preparation phase, if I take the specific examples of Ghistelinck, for instance, we looked together at both scope and approach. So as mentioned, it's quite a diverse set of activities, and doing an assessment of its own operations against the impact on environment, people, and the governmental element would be quite difficult. So we decided to split the organization, or to split the exercise, not to split the organization, into 3 business units, if you want to call it, clusters of activities, whereby we group the sales and purchase of vehicles. We set aside all internal logistics activities, because that has a different driver and dynamic as well. And equally on maintenance and body shop activities, it's very bespoke, it's very different compared to buying and selling cars as such. So we did the exercise within the 3 business units, and then later on consolidated it. We also decided to make it quite a collaborative, participative approach. So we selected 25 individuals in the organizations to join the sessions on the inside out and the outside in assessment. And equally important was, you can imagine that an organization had quite a lot of stakeholders, and in principle, you have to involve all of them at some point in time in the double materiality assessment. Now, we know out of experience in Delaware that it's quite difficult to engage with, for instance, end users and consumers, but equally your own staff. You really need to put it into context. And by sending out questionnaires, we really have bad experience with that. So it goes more into panel discussions, which take much more time, much more budget as well. So we decided to limit the number of stakeholders. And the last point is, I mentioned it before, I think, so the European sustainability reporting standards go up to 94 topics, which you have to assess. But given that Ghistelinck is an automotive dealer active in that space, not all of the topics are relevant. For instance, biodiversity, it's a long stretch to say to what extent Ghistelinck Automotive with its operations has an impact on that one. So as part of the preparation phase as well, we descoped that one, and we went in to the series of workshops to assess the inside out and the outside in with a set of 17 ESRS-related topics.
Wow, okay, so it's a lot to do even before starting, but I understand that we can be flexible in how we do it. I think this is the purpose of this law, it's to be really transparent, doing as best as we can the first time, and then improving over time. So now that we know a bit how you started it, I think that to know which topic among the 24 that you selected are what we call material, you need to apply some formula so that it cannot be discussed. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Yes,
so also on that one, to some extent, Europe is prescriptive, so they indicate what you need to assess and how you need to assess it. This is the approach that we have. The example is on greenhouse gas emissions and energy. 2 of the topics that every company has to assess, they're kind of mandatory. On the left-hand side, you can see the scaling that we did from not being applicable to very high impact on that one. And on the bottom half, you can see the different components that needs to be assessed. And once again, also in the preparation phase, it's very, very important that if you do it with a broad audience, that you have a good definition of, for instance, scope. In this case, the question is, do the body shop activities, for instance, of Ghistelinck Automotive, do they create emissions as such? And is it from a scale to 0 up to 5? Similar, you have to assess these emissions. What's the impact on the environment? For instance, does that only impact the local operations? Does it go beyond, and does it impact the business area that you're operating at? Or even if you're in a residential area, it could be much bigger, that you have a huger impact. The third element that needs to be assessed in this one, it's a difficult word, irremediability. It basically means Today, do we have technology available to mitigate, avoid, or even reduce the emissions? So these three components needs to be assessed together with the likelihood to occur, and that will give you a score. That's the assessment from an inside-out perspective that you need to do, and similar on energy, on water pollution, and other activities. Now, the second point that we did is the outside-in. That is a bit more linked to the risk management processes, which most organizations have. It's a similar scoring from 0 to 5, but you only need to assess the magnitude, so the financial impact of, for instance, being exposed to a water flood with operations outages and so forth, with the likelihood on that one. So that's easier. On the first one, perhaps, the inside out, what I forgot to mention is, well, both greenhouse gas emissions and energy, that's a rather negative impact you potentially have on the organization, right? You also have ESRS topics where you have a positive impact. So it's a good news story. For instance, if you take anything related to talent development or talent management, if you put actions into place to enforce that one, it will, of course, increase for instance, the company image, but equally customer satisfaction might increase or employee satisfaction. So there are some positive elements that do play into the exercise as well.
I'm happy to hear it's not all bad. But basically, once you've applied those formula to your topics, what does the result look like and how do you interpret it?
Yeah. So this is one of the deliverables, to put it like that we have of the double materiality exit. It's a matrix overview, where you can see the scoring of the impact materiality, so the inside-out assessment on the horizontal axis. On the vertical axis, we have the financial impact, similar from a 0 to a 5, 5 being quite heavy. And the way you should read is, as part of the methodology, the organization needs to agree upon the topical elements. And in this case, we took the average of all the topics. And you can see on the horizontal axis, that's the average for the financial materiality. And anything above that line, that axis, needs to be, or is considered to be topical, to be considered to be material, and needs to be reported going forward. Similar, everything on the vertical line and the black line in the middle, everything to the right needs to be reported going forward. So for Ghistelinck Automotive, this means effectively that out of the 94 ESRS topics, 6 of them will need to be reported going forward. Once again, we did it with 25 participants. It's quite a consensus model you have then. It's not 1 or 2 individuals in the organization that decide. And this is something that's really appreciated and is compliant with Europe and the audit elements, audit firms as well as such.
Okay, so you already told us a lot. Maybe quickly, could you give us the first advice that you saw on this first important phase that you did with Ghistelinck?
Yes, well, it's not only on Ghistelinck Automotive, it goes beyond that one. But there are 3 takeaways that we always take. The first one, I think I mentioned it in the beginning, sustainability is quite a broad topic. So a lot of interpretations, readings out of sustainability. And secondly, linked to that one as well, also, the European legislation is still subject to change. It has been issued. We know the results of the political situations nowadays, so there will be some impact on that one. But equally, now that organizations are experiencing it, there is some feedback in saying, how should we read this and that? And so from that perspective, once again, the preparation phase is quite key, that we have everybody on the same line with the same definitions and the same objectives on that one. The second one, and that's quite specific to Ghistelinck Automotive, I mentioned it, that the outside-in assessment, that actually is quite similar, if not identical, to a risk management process. But if you don't have a risk management process, and not a formal risk management process, it takes time to set that up. We decided to go with 25 participants spread over the business units. Different profiles, right? Operational individuals up to financial knowledgeable people. But we could see that the risk assessment as such, it's a different métier. It's a different type of exercise. You need to have a perspective on the short term, on the mid-term, on the long term, in terms of opportunities, in terms of risks. So that really is an attention point going forward in order to address that one well. And then the last one is, it's actually a kind of a confirmation rather than an observation. For us, this is really the beginning of a journey, right? Yes, you need to start reporting upon sustainability. So from that perspective, it's an initiative that you need to take, you're obliged to. But on the same hand, it will be there forever. So it's better to see it as the beginning of a process, to assign process owners, to assign or to identify stewards as well going forward, to make sure that sustainability really gets embedded in all processes or in the most important processes of your organization. So those are the 3 takeaways that I would like to share with you.
All right, so you managed to do the double matching matrix. We got your advice, but then what happens? I think you need to transform those in KPIs.
Yes. Yeah, so as mentioned before, in total, Europe has identified 1,200 data points. Just to put it into perspective, for Ghistelinck, we had 6 topical elements out of the ESRS. We have 374 key sustainability indicators. Giving the numbers, you can argue whether it's key. There definitely are sustainability indicators, of which 106 are quantitative. So we measure it, the number of people, the greenhouse gas emissions, and so forth. And all the rest are different types of data sources, data points that you need. It could be narratives, it could be semi-narratives, it could be tables, it could be action plans that need to be provided. So quite a lot. And what's important as well, is to acknowledge that if Europe says this is an indicator, a data point that needs to be reported, well, from a real data perspective, it goes beyond that one. On the right-hand side, you can see an example of greenhouse gas emissions. So yes, as part of the materiality assessment, we need to report on Scope 1 greenhouse gas emissions. But Scope 1 greenhouse gas emissions is composed of 3 elements. You have combustion, you have the vehicles, the fleet, your own fleet, and the emissions that come out of that, and potentially some fugitive emissions as well. And then the question, if we take, for instance, the easy one on the company vehicles, the question is, do you measure the emissions? Do you have a contract, a supplier, a fleet company that tracks the emission as such, based on the mileage, the kilometers that you drive? Then it's fine. If not, you have to come up with a proxy. You know the type of vehicles, you know the kilometers that have been driven, and based on that one, we can calculate a proxy. So the data exercise following next to the double materiality is quite still something to put into perspective. Yeah.
Okay, and I think then we need to do also some, as you say, technical sheets to really know, to transform from the law to in practice, how do we do it? And this is where the green data lake comes in, I think.
That's the starting point of the green data lake, yes. So if you remember the overall approach we have, the phase 2A it was called, but that's actually in together with the organization, setting up the functional data sheet, because 374 for Ghistelinck Automotive is quite a lot. So it's good that we have all the sources, all the formulas identified, all the data owners are identified. Some of the elements will be available, some of them are not available in the short term, and therefore we need action plans. So that's on one hand. And on the second hand, and that's indeed the element on the green data platform, and I think quite frankly within Delaware we're quite well suited on that one, because that's something we master, giving our partnerships with both SAP as well as Microsoft. We look for an architecture that fits, and in the case of Ghistelinck Automotive, we went for the green data platform into the Microsoft suite with Fabric. Well, I compared sustainability a bit with Rome, although Rome was burned in one day, it wasn't built in one day. And also for this one, I really favor a modular approach, whereby stage by stage you include additional data points at that element. And the Microsoft environment, the Fabric environment, really allows for that one. We can do a manual upload of data. We can do an automatic integration of data points, as some of the data points are available. Some of the data points might be available in different legacy systems. Ghistelinck Automotive, of course, they have a close relationship with Mercedes as well as with D'Ieteren for the Volkswagen brands that they have. And their platforms, their software, also needs to be integrated in that one. And once again, Microsoft Fabric really provides a nice opportunity on that one. And the last one is perhaps still on reporting. That's quite important as well. Also there, Microsoft is about to launch their ESG reporting app. I think it will come out any day now. But also this platform provides a nice flexibility. You can go with other reporting tools if you want. You do not have a technology lock-in, so to speak.
All right. So Ghistelinck has already done a lot, and you are going to do even more so with the implementation soon, I think, of the Green Data Lake. Thank you very much for all those insights. I think it was lots of information.